Ohio has long been a hub of the nation's artistic and cultural life, and America 250 Ohio is shining a spotlight on that legacy with its new Creativity Trail. This self-guided driving trail features more than 100 sites showcasing the state's contributions to art, culture, and literature, including an on-the-page mini trail dedicated to Ohioans who left their mark by putting pen to paper. I'm Betty Weibel, the author of the Ohio Literary Trail, a guide, and I'm here to show you some key literary sites on this trail that illustrate our rich heritage. Our literary stops were inspired by the Ohio Literary Trail presented by the Ohioana Library. There are more than 70 landmarks that honor authors, poets, illustrators, libraries, and creative influencers from the past. Every story starts somewhere, and many of America's most impactful stories come from Ohio. To show you what we mean, we're going to take you behind the scenes to 5 destinations where you will learn about the Ohio connections to Nancy Drew Mysteries, a Nobel and Pulitzer Prize-winning author, the foremost humorist and cartoonist of the 20th century, the father of Western romance, and the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. The roots for them all are right here in Ohio. Let's start our tour in the northwest corner of the state, where we'll visit the Toledo-Lucas County Public Library, home to the largest collection of Nancy Drew-themed artifacts. What you might not know is that the Nancy Drew stories were first penned by Toledo ghostwriter Mildred Wirt Benson under the pen name Carolyn Keene.
Well, the Jennifer Fisher Nancy Drew collection at the Toledo-Lucas County Public Library is something really special and unique. We were very fortunate in 2019 to receive this collection from Jennifer Fisher, the founder and president of the Nancy Drew Sleuths. And our collection includes more than 5,000 items related to Nancy Drew and its authors. There have been more than 600 books written about Nancy Drew, and so you'll see a sampling of all the different editions of books, as well as foreign editions. In addition, we have a huge collection of ephemera, collectible items, games, costumes, things from the TV shows and the movies, posters, original artwork, you name it, we probably have it. So many people know that the Nancy Drew books were written by Carolyn Keene, but many people don't know that Carolyn Keene was a pseudonym. The Stratemeyer Syndicate, who published series books for children, hired ghostwriters to write the books that they provided outlines for. And the original Carolyn Keene was a woman named Mildred Wirt Benson, who spent most of her life in Toledo and did write some of the Nancy Drew books while she was here. Mildred Wirt Benson was a journalist and a writer. She began writing children's books in the late 20s, and she wrote the first Nancy Drew books, which came out in 1930. She ended up writing 23 of the first Nancy Drew books and about 130 books for children altogether. But her main writing work was as a journalist. She moved to Toledo to work for the Toledo Times, and then later for the Toledo Blade, where she worked until she died in 2002. She was at the Blade the very day she died, didn't feel well, and ended up going to the hospital. Her very last column was a story about the importance of public libraries. As she aged, she began to write a weekly column about things of interest in the Toledo area. Millie was in many ways a lot like Nancy Drew. She was an adventurous woman who lived a lot of the exciting things that Nancy Drew also lived. She traveled. She got her pilot's license when she was in her 60s. She went to Peru and was actually kidnapped while there. She applied to be a journalist in space when she was in her 80s, and that application to NASA is part of our collection here at the library. Nancy Drew is a literary figure who inspires girls to solve mysteries, to have adventures, to be brave, to take chances.
You can visit another Ohio literary highlight at the Lorain Public Library. 2026 marks the 30th anniversary of the dedication of the Toni Morrison Reading Room, which Toni herself helped design in the library she loved and worked at in her youth. Sites all around Ohio are participating in a year-long celebration honoring this Nobel and Pulitzer Prize-winning author.
Toni Morrison, in her earlier career, first off, she didn't publish until she was almost 40, but she was doing everything at once. She was a full-time book editor at a New York publishing house. She was a writer, and she was also teaching at colleges. And so she was doing it all almost before it was popular to do it all. I don't think people know that. So I think she was just a tremendously hard worker all her life. She was recording her books through her mid-80s, which is, again, and that's very hard work. Toni holds a really high place in literary history, and it's become only more magnified. Lorraine inspired her books, but later on she used Ohio in general as a setting for probably some of her greatest works. When she was growing up, she said the whole world was like Lorraine. And that's what she thought. And she only realized later that no, the whole world was not like Lorraine, and that was not for the better. Ohio never left her literary imagination. She was Ohio. She was proud. She would go across the world and visit, and she would say that I'm from Ohio. Lorraine exceeded what many people thought of in the United States, and certainly in Ohio.
In Central Ohio on our tour, you'll find the Thurber House Museum and Literary Arts Center. It's the original home of America's beloved humorist, cartoonist, and writer, James Thurber.
People should visit Thurber House because we are several things. We have a museum devoted to James Thurber. This was his boyhood home in Columbus. And we are a literary arts center. We have events and classes for writers, authors, artists, all sorts of stuff going on. This particular site, helps us understand literary history better in Ohio because James Thurber lived here from 1913 to 1917. And in this place, it is the setting for several of his most famous stories, including The Night the Ghost Got In. And also he captured life in Columbus, life at that period in the 1910s, and recorded events and people who were here. When people visit Thurber House, they can expect to walk into a living museum devoted to James Thurber. So when they walk in the door, the house is going to feel like a family is living here in between 1913 and 1917. Those are our target years. And almost everything in the museum can be touched, lifted up, interacted with, sat on. All of that is available to people, with the idea that helps you imagine what it was like to be here, be in this place where James Thurber, in his young college-age self, was compiling material for his future stories. We have actual drawings that he's done. We have the Zeiss loop that he used. James Thurber, as a child, his brother accidentally shot him in the eye with a bow and arrow, and he ended up losing the eye actually, and had a glass eye. And throughout his life, instead of the other eye compensating, he slowly went blind in the other eye. But he created these cartoons. So his cartoons actually got larger and larger as it got harder and harder for him to see. And he would wear a jeweler's Zeiss loop, which looks almost like goggles that you put on, in order to do his drawings. Thurber House is a small house museum, and as a part of that, we have a collection of James Thurber memorabilia and artwork, all sorts of interesting pieces from his life. We have actual drawings that he's done. We have the Zeiss loop that he used.
The National Road and Zane Grey Museum is located in Southeast Ohio. Here we pay tribute to another great influencer, considered the father of the American Western novel and movies, Zane Grey.
So this museum, especially its connection to literary history, is through Zane Grey. He's one of Ohio's most prolific authors. He has over 80 books published in his name and over 100 movies made from those works. He was the first millionaire Western author, and he's so synonymous with the Western genre that he sometimes is called the father of the modern Western. So visitors can expect to see artifacts from Zane's time here in Ohio, his life in Lackawaxen, Pennsylvania, New York, and even out west. They can see how the majority of his writings were done because we have a recreation of a study that is filled with items from the original down to the smallest little detail like the pencil in his hand. I think people need to know about his wife, Dolly. In his early career, she is a financial backer for him, and once he starts to achieve greatness, she is his editor for every single book he publishes. She is his negotiator, business partner, best friend, and oftentimes his enemy. And she's also the person that brought all of these artifacts back to establish a museum here in Zanesville about him.
You could spend days exploring literary sites in Southwest Ohio. And as we wind down our tour, let's stop in Cincinnati and visit the Harriet Beecher Stowe House and Museum.
So people should visit the Harriet Beecher Stowe House because it really demonstrates or shows an important piece of literature and history in the United States. Uncle Tom's Cabin was the premier, most important anti-slavery novel ever, and Harriet Beecher Stowe was able to write that based on the 18 years that she lived here in Cincinnati, a border city. So this house demonstrates or shows all of the ways that she learned what she needed to learn and met the people and connections she needed to meet in order to write that important novel. When people visit the Harriet Beecher Stowe House, they can expect to see a restored house that is actually demonstrating two important parts of history here in Cincinnati. So part of the house is actually restored to when it was the Beecher family home. So it looks like 1840, and here is where we really show and demonstrate all of the ways that Harriet and the Beecher family served as social reform-minded people and how they were able to make those important transformations in society. So that's one part of the house. But then visitors will also see a later phase of the house. In the 1930s and 40s, this same structure was an African-American boarding house and tavern called the Edgemont Inn, and it was actually even listed in the Green Motorist book as a safe place for travelers. It hosted meetings amongst African-American social groups and political groups and clubs and so forth. So this house demonstrates both of those time periods. It even has a listing as a National Register of Historic Places and is designated for both the Beecher family home and for the Edgemont Inn period. Harriet Beecher Stowe is important to Ohio history because I think a lot of people don't really understand or realize how important Ohio was for the abolition of slavery. You know, there are a lot of documented places here in Ohio that demonstrate Underground Railroad activity, and there is a lot of information about abolition throughout Ohio. But I don't know that everyone really understands that sense of importance and that sense that Cincinnati really served as a focal point between the North and the South. One thing that people need to know about Harriet Beecher Stowe is that she was just a regular person like all of us. You know, a lot of times we put authors on a pedestal and we say, so-and-so wrote this book and then this thing happened. But really, authors are just regular people and have hopes and dreams and problems and fears and happiness, all of these things rolled into one.
These literary destinations span the Buckeye State, but many of the artifacts live among the thousands of archives preserved at the Ohioana Library in Columbus. For nearly 90 years, Ohioana has been dedicated to recognizing Ohio authors with its prestigious Ohio Book Awards, the second oldest and among the most prestigious state library prizes in the nation. Ohioana also hosts an annual book festival and publishes a quarterly publication. Their impressive archive collection includes original works of Ohio authors.
Ohioana was founded in 1929 by the then First Lady, Martha Kinney Cooper, who was married to the governor, Myers Y. Cooper. They moved into the governor's residence, and there was a really nice library there, but Martha realized that there were almost no Ohio authors represented in it. So she made it her mission to create a new library that was all either items by Ohioans or about Ohio.
When you visit literary trail sites, you can see history brought to life and experience it firsthand. Whether you travel the entire state or select stops close to your home, we encourage you to visit as many sites as possible. Our mini literary trail tour is designed to whet your appetite and encourage you to visit your local library to explore the works of Ohio authors, illustrators, or topics to expand your knowledge. But don't stop there. Explore all of Ohio's diverse creative trail sites through the Ohio Creativity Trail. It features 6 distinct artistic themes: music, visual arts, glass and pottery, folk and traditional arts, carousel art, and of course, literature, which you have already been previewing. Whether you plan a multi-day excursion or you just want to make a brief stop, the Creativity Trail offers something for everyone. We encourage you to discover these treasures in your own backyard and explore your own creative potential.